May 25, 1979, 3:02 p.m., American Airlines Flight 191 lifts off from Chicago O'Hare with 273 people on board. Destination, Los Angeles. But 6 seconds into takeoff, the impossible happens. The left engine doesn't just fail, it explodes away from the wing, flipping through the air like a 9-ton bomb. The crew has 31 seconds to save everyone, but their instruments are lying, their warnings are silent, and the procedures they're following will kill them all. This disaster began 2 months earlier with a maintenance shortcut to save 200 hours of work. When investigators discovered the truth, one man couldn't live with the guilt. How do you kill 273 people with an invisible crack? This is the story of America's deadliest plane crash and the 25-centimeter fracture that brought down an empire. This is Inside Aero Disasters. 2 months before Flight 191 became history's deadliest U.S. air disaster, mechanics in Tulsa discovered they had a problem. American Airlines needed to replace spherical bearings in the engine pylons of their DC-10 fleet, routine maintenance that required removing the massive engines from their wing mounts. McDonnell Douglas had clear instructions. Remove the engine first, then detach the pylons separately. 2 careful steps. 79 individual disconnections of hydraulic lines, fuel systems, and electrical cables. But American Airlines saw an opportunity. What if they removed the engine and pylon together as one giant unit? It would slash the work from 200 hours to just a few, cut the disconnections from 79 to 27, save thousands of dollars per aircraft. There was just one problem. The combined engine pylon assembly weighed 18,000 pounds. Moving it required perfect precision. The center of gravity lay 10 feet forward of the attachment points, making the whole unit want to tip like a massive seesaw. American solution? A forklift. Not the overhead crane that United Airlines used successfully. Not the careful step-by-step process the manufacturer recommended. A forklift operated by hand signals, where operators couldn't even see the critical junction between pylon and wing. The margin for error was 0. One slight miscalculation, one tiny hydraulic leak, one moment of imprecision, and 18,000 pounds of metal would slam into the wing structure. On March 30th, 1979, mechanics positioned their forklift under aircraft N110, AA's left engine. The midnight shift began the delicate process of lowering the massive assembly. Everything seemed fine. Then the shift change happened. The day crew arrived to finish the job, but during the handover, something went wrong. Hydraulic pressure bled from the forklift. The forks sagged slightly. The engine pylon assembly shifted and jammed against the wing mount. The impact created a hairline crack in the pylon's rear bulkhead, 25 centimeters long, completely invisible, growing with every takeoff and landing. For 8 weeks, N110AA flew passenger routes, while the crack slowly spread through the metal. No one knew. No inspections caught it. The aircraft passed every safety check, but with each flight cycle, the fracture grew larger. The metal grew weaker, and Flight 191's date with disaster grew closer. May 25, 1979, Memorial Day weekend at Chicago O'Hare. Captain Walter Lux settled into the left seat of N110AA with 22,000 flight hours behind him, 3,000 of them in DC-10s. His first officer, James Dillard, brought 9,275 hours of experience. Both men trusted their aircraft completely. They had no reason not to. The pre-flight inspection revealed nothing unusual. The engines spooled up normally. All systems showed green. The weather was perfect. Clear skies with a brisk northeasterly wind. At 3:02 p.m., Flight 191 was cleared for takeoff on runway 32R. 273 people settled back in their seats as the massive DC-10 began its acceleration down the 10,000-foot runway. The engines roared to full power. The aircraft reached 175 miles per hour, rotation speed. Captain Lux pulled back on the controls to lift the nose. That's when physics took over. The crack that had been growing for 8 weeks suddenly reached critical size. 25 centimeters became 33. The enormous forces of takeoff thrust, millions of pounds of pressure, finally snapped the damaged metal. The left engine didn't just shut down, it exploded away from the wing entirely, flipping backward over the aircraft like a giant metallic missile before crashing onto the runway behind them. But the engine's departure took something else with it. As the 9-ton assembly ripped free, it severed 4 hydraulic lines running through the wing's leading edge. Without pressure, the outboard slats on the left wing retracted instantly, critical devices that prevent stalling at low speeds. The electrical generator attached to the departed engine went dark, taking essential systems with it. Captain Lux's flight instruments failed. The stall warning system died. The slat disagreement indicator that could have saved their lives, silent. From his right seat, First Officer Dillard saw normal readings on his instruments. The crew couldn't see the devastation outside. To them, this looked like a standard engine failure. Following emergency procedures perfectly, Dillard raised the nose to 14 degrees and reduced speed to 153 knots, the prescribed safety speed for climbing after engine loss. But those procedures assumed normal wing configuration. With the left wing slats retracted, the stall speed had jumped from 124 to 159 knots. By slowing to 153, they were flying 6 knots below the stall speed. At 325 feet above the ground, the left wing stopped flying. The DC-10 snapped into an uncontrollable left roll, banking past vertical to 112 degrees. Captain Lux fought the controls with everything he had, but the laws of physics had already won. "Damn!" someone shouted in the cockpit as the aircraft rolled inverted. Through the windows, passengers saw the ground rushing up to meet them. Screams filled the cabin. 31 seconds. That's all the time they had from engine separation to impact. 31 seconds to save 273 lives with an aircraft that was aerodynamically impossible to fly. The massive jet slammed into an open field 1,400 meters beyond the runway, disintegrating on contact. The fuel ignited instantly, creating a fireball that could be seen for miles. Emergency crews rushing to the scene found only twisted metal and flames. Everyone on board died instantly. 2 people on the ground were also killed when debris struck a nearby building. In 31 seconds, American Airlines Flight 191 became the deadliest aviation disaster in U.S. history. But the real investigation was just beginning. Within hours, NTSB investigators found the separated engine lying beside runway 32R. The pylon structure told a disturbing story, a 33-centimeter crack that showed clear signs of metal fatigue. But this wasn't random failure. The damage pattern revealed it had been caused during maintenance. The trail led back to American Airlines' Tulsa facility and that fateful March 30th engine change. Investigators discovered that not only had American used the unauthorized forklift procedure, but so had Continental and United Airlines. The entire industry had been playing Russian roulette. Fleet inspections revealed the shocking truth. 6 more DC-10s were flying with similar pylon damage. 4 at American, 2 at Continental. All had used the same dangerous shortcut. The aircraft were ticking time bombs that no one knew existed. But there was something else. Continental had actually discovered cracks on their aircraft twice before, in December 1978 and February 1979. They repaired the damage quietly but never reported it to the FAA or McDonnell Douglas. The warnings that could have prevented Flight 191 remained buried in paperwork. The pressure was building on everyone involved. McDonnell Douglas attorneys prepared to question American Airlines mechanics about the maintenance procedures. Earl Russell Marshall, the 47-year-old supervisor who had overseen work on N110AA, was scheduled for deposition. On March 25, 1981, the night before he was to testify, Marshall drove into his garage, attached a hose to his car's exhaust pipe, and took his own life. His wife found him the next morning. She told investigators he had been haunted by the Chicago crash, unable to escape the weight of 273 deaths. 12 days after Flight 191, the FAA took unprecedented action. Every DC-10 in America was grounded. The first time in aviation history, an entire aircraft type had been banned from U.S. airspace. The grounding lasted 37 days and cost the industry millions. But it forced a reckoning that changed aviation forever. American Airlines was fined $500,000, barely a slap on the wrist for killing 273 people. The real penalty was the truth. The NTSB's final report was devastating. The crash wasn't caused by pilot error, weather, or mechanical failure. It was caused by corporate corner-cutting and regulatory blindness. Airlines had prioritized efficiency over safety, and the FAA had failed to catch it. New rules were implemented immediately. Maintenance procedures that deviated from manufacturer instructions required FAA approval. Engine changes became heavily regulated. The dangerous forklift method was banned forever. But the DC-10's reputation was destroyed. Orders plummeted. McDonnell Douglas, once Boeing's biggest rival, began its slow death spiral. By 1997, the company had been absorbed by Boeing, its dreams of aviation dominance buried with Flight 191. The aircraft that killed 273 people had also killed the company that built it. Earl Marshall's suicide became a symbol of the human cost behind aviation disasters. One man's guilt over a maintenance shortcut had consumed him entirely. His death reminded the industry that behind every crash statistic were real people. Victims, survivors, and those who carried the weight of responsibility. Today, the DC-10s that survive fly cargo routes, their passenger days long over. Flight 191's crash site is now a memorial garden where families still leave flowers for the 273 who never made it to Los Angeles. The most dangerous crashes aren't always the most complex. Sometimes they're caused by something as simple as a forklift positioned wrong, a crack no one could see, and a decision to save 200 hours of work. If you want to understand how maintenance shortcuts become mass casualties and how one crack can bring down an empire, subscribe to Inside Aero Disasters, because the most important safety lessons are written in tragedy, and every flight today is safer because of the disasters we refuse to forget.